Behind the golden doors of the palace, one sentence reportedly changed everything. Not a public announcement, not a headline from Buckingham Palace, not even a carefully prepared royal statement. Just one sentence spoken behind closed doors by Princess Catherine. And according to alleged palace whispers, the words were so serious that even King Charles could not simply ignore them. Because this was not just about a king feeling tired. It was not only about a reduced royal schedule or a quiet change in public duties. This was about the future of the crown, the pressure building around Prince William, and the painful possibility that the monarchy may already have been preparing for one of the most emotional transitions in modern royal history. Before we go deeper into this shocking and emotional royal story, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We bring you powerful royal updates, emotional palace moments, and the kind of stories that reveal what may be happening behind the royal walls. Princess Catherine has always been known for her calmness. She does not speak carelessly. She does not chase attention. She rarely allows emotion to overpower duty. But according to the story being discussed by some royal watchers, there came a moment when silence became too heavy for her to carry. For weeks, the royal family had reportedly been moving through public life with controlled smiles, careful statements, and perfectly polished appearances. To the outside world, everything looked steady. But behind palace doors, the mood was allegedly very different. There were concerns, private meetings, tense conversations, and one question that seemed to grow louder with every passing day. How long could King Charles continue carrying the full weight of the crown? According to these alleged private accounts, King Charles had been considering a secret abdication plan, a private path that could allow him to slowly step back from royal duties while giving Prince William more responsibility. And if the claims are true, this was not a sudden emotional reaction. It was a serious transition plan, designed to protect the monarchy before weakness or uncertainty became too visible to the public. That is why Catherine's reported words hit so hard. She was not simply speaking about a document, she was speaking about a future that had already started moving before the family had fully accepted it. She was speaking about William's life, their children's future, and the painful reality that the next reign may not be as distant as people once believed. The room reportedly fell silent when Catherine spoke. Her voice was controlled, but there was emotion beneath every word. She did not sound angry, she did not sound dramatic. She sounded like someone who had finally reached the point where truth mattered more than comfort. Prince William reportedly watched her closely, because he understood what she was doing. But he also understood what it would cost, because King Charles was not only the monarch, he was William's father. And that made the situation far more painful than any official statement could ever explain. To the public, this may have sounded like a royal transition, but inside the family, it was something much more human. It was a son watching his father prepare to step back. It was a wife trying to protect her husband from hidden pressure. It was a family realizing that the crown does not only create power, sometimes it creates wounds. King Charles reportedly listened without immediate anger. He did not explode. He did not interrupt. He simply absorbed the weight of what had been said. And that silence may have been more powerful than any reaction, because Charles had spent most of his life waiting to become king. He had carried that destiny through decades of criticism, expectation, and public judgment. And now, after finally reaching the throne, the same crown may have been asking him to prepare for leaving it. That is the emotional tragedy at the center of this story. Charles was not simply being pushed aside. He was allegedly facing the painful reality that duty sometimes demands surrender. If he stayed too long while struggling under pressure, the monarchy could look fragile. But if he stepped back too soon, the world might see weakness. Either choice carried pain. Either choice could change the future of the royal family forever. According to alleged palace conversations, the abdication plan was not just a simple note or vague idea. It was reportedly a transition document that explored how duties, appearances, public roles, and authority could gradually move toward Prince William. And that matters because inside the monarchy, power does not always move through one dramatic ceremony. Sometimes power moves quietly through schedules, briefings, speeches, and public appearances. If William began appearing more often at major events, people would notice. If Charles appeared less, people would question it. If Catherine became the emotional face of stability, the public would begin to understand that something deeper was happening. And that is exactly why Catherine's reported silence may have become impossible. She knew William had been preparing for the crown his entire life. But preparation does not erase pain. It does not make a son ready to watch his father fade from the center of royal life. It does not make a husband ready to carry the entire weight of history while still protecting his family at home. And according to these claims, Catherine believed William deserved honesty, not a future shaped by hidden plans and quiet pressure. At the heart of this alleged crisis was a private Windsor dinner. Royal crises often have one moment people later try to minimize, one conversation that seems controlled at the time, but later reveals itself as the turning point. In this story, that moment reportedly came when King Charles pushed away his plate during a private family gathering and said the monarchy could not survive another year of pretending. Those words reportedly changed the entire atmosphere. William looked toward his father, Catherine looked toward William, and Camilla, standing closest to Charles's life and reign, allegedly understood instantly that something irreversible had begun. Charles did not shout. He did not make a theatrical confession. He simply spoke like a man who had finally admitted the burden was becoming too heavy. According to the alleged account, Charles told the family that advisors had already prepared options for a staged withdrawal. That could mean fewer public duties, more responsibility for William, and eventually a formal announcement if the situation demanded it. The purpose, according to the claim, was not to abandon the crown, but to protect it. Charles reportedly feared that if the monarchy looked unstable in public, the damage could be greater than any private sacrifice. But for William, the revelation was devastating. He had always known the crown would one day come to him. That part was never a surprise. But hearing that the process may already have begun, and that parts of it may have been discussed before he was emotionally ready, was something else entirely. It made the future feel less like destiny and more like a summons. Catherine reportedly noticed the change in William before anyone else did. She saw the color drain from his face. She saw the silence settle over him. And beneath the table, she reached for his hand. Not to stop him from reacting, but to remind him that he was not facing this alone. Camilla's reaction, according to these alleged accounts, was very different. She reportedly questioned the timing and warned that the monarchy needed firmness, not surrender. But behind that controlled response, some believe there was fear. Because if Charles stepped back, Camilla's place beside the throne would also change. The influence she had built over years of survival, criticism, and public acceptance could shrink in a single royal decision. And that is where the tension reportedly grew sharper. Catherine heard concern in Camilla's words, but she may also have heard resistance, because the future being discussed was not forming around Camilla. It was forming around William and Catherine. The next chapter of the monarchy was beginning to take shape, and Catherine's role was becoming more important than ever. According to the alleged transition discussions, Catherine was not simply seen as William's wife standing quietly beside him. She was reportedly viewed as the emotional bridge between one reign and the next, the person who could make a difficult transition feel stable, the person the public trusted, the person who could stand beside William and help the country believe the monarchy was not collapsing, but changing. That placement reportedly unsettled Camilla, because in royal life, position is not only about title, it is about visibility, it is about trust, it is about whose face the public sees when the institution needs comfort. And if Catherine was becoming the center of public confidence, then Camilla may have felt the ground shifting beneath her. The most difficult confrontation, according to the story, came later. Catherine reportedly requested a private meeting with King Charles after learning that parts of the transition timetable had already been prepared. A timetable is not just a plan, it is a schedule. It decides how fast duties move, when public appearances change, and how much of the truth is revealed. Whoever controls the timetable controls the future. Catherine reportedly entered that room knowing Charles was still king, still father, and still the man everyone was trying to protect. But she also knew William could not be asked to carry a crown built on uncertainty. So she asked the question no one else wanted to ask. Had William's future already been arranged around him before he had fully agreed to it? That question reportedly wounded Charles, not because it was cruel, but because it touched the truth. Charles allegedly insisted that the planning was not abandonment. It was protection. He believed a crown must never be seen stumbling in public. He believed William deserved preparation instead of sudden chaos, and in many ways that explanation made sense. But Catherine reportedly saw another side of it. Protection without honesty can become control. She placed a marked page on the table, according to the alleged account. A page from a private transition file showing future duties already connected to William. And in that moment, the issue became painfully clear. This was no longer about whether Charles loved his son. This was about whether the palace had started shaping William's destiny without giving him the full truth. Charles reportedly stared at the page and admitted the palace feared public panic if the plan was explained too early. That admission changed everything, because it meant silence had not only protected Charles, it had protected the palace from the consequences of its own fear. Catherine understood the danger immediately. A monarchy can survive bad headlines. It can survive criticism. It can even survive painful transitions. But it cannot survive if the people closest to the crown no longer trust the process behind it. And for Catherine, protecting William meant forcing the truth into the open before secrecy became poison. The fallout reportedly began quietly, not with a dramatic statement, but with small changes. A revised schedule, a delayed call, a briefing rewritten, a public duty adjusted, one senior aide leaving Charles's office with papers that seemed to confirm the direction of travel. And inside the palace, everyone understood what those small movements meant. Charles's duties were reportedly being reduced. William was being placed forward in more symbolic appearances. Catherine was being positioned as a figure of calm and continuity. And Camilla's team, according to the alleged accounts, began demanding answers. That is when the story became even more emotional, because Catherine had spoken to protect William from hidden pressure, but now the truth was accelerating the very future she feared. William could see his father's absence being written into his own schedule. Line by line, duty by duty, by appearance, the future was arriving. And for William, that future did not feel like victory. It felt like grief. He reportedly stepped away from advisors and palace officials because this was not a moment official language could fix. He needed to speak to Catherine not as a prince, not as an heir, but as a husband and a son. And behind closed doors, the two of them reportedly faced the question that no palace document could answer. What kind of future were they willing to accept? William allegedly told Catherine he did not want the crown through his father's suffering. He did not want his first step toward kingship to feel like he was walking over the weakness of the man who raised him. But he also knew the monarchy could not keep pretending the plan was only paper. If there was going to be a transition, it had to be honest. It had to be controlled. And above all, it had to protect Charles's dignity. That was the turning point. Catherine had not pushed William toward power. She had helped him face it. And William had not chosen ambition over his father. He had chosen duty without cruelty. He wanted Charles protected, not humiliated. He wanted the public prepared, not shocked. He wanted the monarchy to move forward without destroying the man who had spent his life serving it. By morning, according to the story, the mood outside the palace had shifted. People gathered near Buckingham Palace not with excitement, but with uneasy silence. This was not the atmosphere of celebration. It was the atmosphere of history. The public seemed to sense that something serious was happening behind the gates. Newspaper front pages reportedly began framing Catherine and William as the faces of the monarchy's next chapter. Charles appeared in some coverage not as a failed king, but as a tired one, a man who had given decades to duty and now faced the painful question of whether continuing would strengthen the crown or weaken it. Thanks for watching. If you found this story emotional, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments, do you think Prince William is ready to carry the crown sooner than expected?